learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv. Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we have Lance Loveday. How you doing, Lance?
Great. How are you, Alex?
Excellent. I'm excited to have Lance on the show. As I became a web designer focused on conversion, I really found it was hard to find really the right books to follow along. And Lance wrote a great book back in the day called Web Design for ROI. Right up my alley. I love talking about web design for results, and we're talking all about that today. To get started, Lance, I want to ask you, what is your definition of optimization, and why is it beneficial?
Well, I think the definition has evolved for me over time. Starting off, it was how to just increase that conversion rate, right? And what were the changes that you can make at a tactical level to bump your conversion rate? And there was so much low-hanging fruit starting off that was the right approach. Over time, it's evolved, from tweaking button placement and changing layout and messing with page hierarchy. And I think I've developed a deeper understanding of the human aspect of things. And so now I actually try to get people not to think about optimization so much because it sounds like such a mechanical process, and try to get people to understand more from a marketing and a human communication perspective. How do you create an end-to-end experience? Because that piece that we're so focused on the landing page side or the CRO side, is often just a point in time within a much longer customer journey. And I think it's important for us to appreciate that and to appreciate how important it is to make sure that touch point aligns with expectations that were set previously, and that it aligns with what the subsequent experience is going to be. So, I know I'm from California, and maybe I'm getting too holistic and hippy-dippy here, but I'm trying to think about how to optimize really an end-to-end experience more nowadays, as opposed to that single touch point.
Well, I think you bring up some really great points there, because as I've done conversion for many years now, people come to me and they think that there's some secret to it, that I'm going to give them some magic pill, and their websites, all of a sudden the conversion is going to go start skyrocketing, and they start to make a bunch of money. And I've slowly been backing away from the term optimization as well, because it is about that customer journey, creating a story through your visualization and your communication, and humanizing the experience to really take them from step to step to step, make them feel comfortable, to get them to that finish line. Mm-hmm. And really, one of the aspects from your original book that I really loved was talking about that visual hierarchy. So when you're designing, can you explain how that process that you go through to kind of figure that out? Sure.
It's so much of it comes back to headline and subhead treatments, right? And then from a design perspective, what's the eye flow, right? What's the order in which people are going to read things? And I've always been struck by how people think about that, and that they think that there is a standard pattern, right? And when in fact it's something that we as designers control, right? So if we design something with lots of white space around it and place it centrally in a high visibility spot, well, that's probably where people are going to look first. Mm-hmm. And that's true whether it is in the top left or the lower right of a page. So it's something that we have influence over. And so, what that argues for is really forcing some discipline on us from a design perspective to figure out, all right, what is that messaging hierarchy? What is the first thing we want people to see here? What's the first message? And then what's the second? And then the third. And then, you can craft the design to support that. And we just don't see that level of thoughtfulness often put into page design. It's often, using an existing template and slapping and playing mix and match a little bit with things, as opposed to taking a step back and saying, all right, well, given how people are arriving at this destination, does that headline make sense? Is it the right context, or is it potentially misaligned? Do we need to have more granular variations, perhaps, of those headlines to align better with the ads or the traffic sources that are sending traffic here? And then the answer for the steps 2 and 3 or messages 2 and 3 and 4 fall out naturally from that. As opposed to this, again, what I think of as more mechanistic approach. I think there's a little too much emphasis, I think, on the data and the quantitative side of things, and I advocate for balancing that. Obviously, data is important, and we want to be informed by the data as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But we need to understand that these are qualitative experience changes that we're testing that are driving the quantitative results we're shooting for, and the two really have to work together.
Yeah, I find this conversation really interesting because as people start to do conversion, they get stuck in the numbers and they don't take into aspect the emotional aspect. Yeah. A lot of time when people are arriving at your landing pages, your e-commerce site or your homepage, a lot of times they don't even know that they're going to buy something, and you have to kind of create that emotional triggers to kind of persuade them to take them through that experience. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when I'm designing, I'm trying to figure out the right composition for the page, and I take into what best practices people think it should be. A nice call to action, which is essentially the focal point. Getting people to kind of flow through the page and then click on that call to action. What would you say be some of the some key influencers that would help people make their pages convert better?
Oh boy. Well, the first is really having the discipline to put together your hierarchy, right? And understand what's truly important for users to understand on this page. And then, I've really been influenced by, is it Daniel Kahneman? I don't know how to say his name properly, but he wrote a great book, Thinking Fast and Slow, and he developed a model well supported by the research for how the human mind operates, and it aligns with some other things that people are more familiar with. Probably Malcolm Gladwell had this concept of thin slicing, right? We react to something in the moment and make judgments very quickly, and certainly web users do that all the time, and as evidenced by often very high bounce rates. Sometimes average time on page is a second or two, right? Because the bounce rate is so high, and that means people are making that judgment to leave very, very quickly.
Right.
And then, that aligns too with, this idea that people don't read copy on the web. And I don't know that that's true. And I don't think that the research really supports that. But so I take these things together, and my philosophy on it is that you've got to have enough there to appeal to that sort of subconscious mind, the sub-rational mind, to give an indication that there is something of value here, right? Jared Spool calls it the scent of information. And so I think you need to engage that sort of system one thinking that is sort of the instinctive fight or flight, am I staying or leaving mind, before people settle in and are willing to engage the slower system two mind that then would probably be willing to read and invest some time and slow down a little bit, and use the prefrontal cortex. So it's call it a neuroscience approach, I guess, to design, and so I'm looking at designs and when we're coming up with concepts from those perspectives. What are we doing to appeal to system one? That Tim Ash calls it the lizard brain, right? What are we doing to let people know that this is simple, it's straightforward, the purpose of the page is clear, and there is something compelling and valuable for me here.
Yeah.
Once I've ticked those boxes, and that judgment happens very quickly, and we can absolutely use design to send those messages, then people are then more willing to engage. They may scroll, they may read, larger, more dense blocks of content, but we've got to check those initial boxes first, and that's where we see most organizations fall down. And it's sort of funny because you've got different schools of thought out there too. You've got the hardcore CRO types that are pushing all the design tweaks, and I think they're very focused on that system one. And then you've got the inbound marketer types that I think are very focused on system two. And I advocate for a more balanced approach. Really, you've got to have both. You've got to have a good design that is clean, that promotes or speaks to simplicity and clarity. But then you've got to have good content to support that as well once you've actually engaged people.
Yeah, well, I find it really inspiring because, as my career has grown, I've definitely moved into more the psychology or the influence and the persuasion of how these things really work. So it's great to see the thought leaders, kind of treading the way for people like me who can, do more than design. They can do more than analytics and start to really take into the concept of influence and what really are those key drivers to have that balance in the middle. You want to do the inbound stuff. You want to do the analytical stuff, and you want to be a great designer. But how can you really figure out a great experience to ensure that you're producing results? And then iterate, and maybe it's not right at the beginning, but make it continue to grow. Now, I know that you've done a lot of different type of design work. When you start testing. You start to find out a lot of things that you didn't anticipate, or sometimes it starts to get a little bit ugly or botched together. How do you kind of deal with some of your clients who maybe are bigger brands who want to stay within the brand standards in order to keep that high level of design, but still create great converting websites?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that we struggle with a lot sometimes. I mean, you've got the degree of branding influence seems to swing a bit, like a pendulum within large organizations, right? They'll go from being sort of loosey-goosey, anything goes at times, and then, it's probably about a 5-year cycle, I think, on average, and then it'll swing back the other way. You'll have some really, militant brand manager come in and really clamp down on things. And it does make life difficult, especially when those individuals may not get really the importance of interaction design, the importance of conversion and persuasion and these other principles, and they're focused solely on the visual aesthetic.
Right.
That can be frustrating. At the same time, I mean, unless they've just put together a set of templates and guidelines that are completely unworkable, which generally is not the case. I mean, there are still such a wide array of options available to you. So, unless the structure itself is just fundamentally flawed, which we've seen on occasion, usually there are ways to be successful still. And you have to get creative. And I think any good designer embraces constraints. Mm-hmm. And is it optimal? We often find ourselves going, well, if we could change some of these things the brand won't let us change, we probably could perform even better, but we're not going to fight losing battles, and we're not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So you got to be pragmatic about it sometimes, but there's almost always some amount of room for improvement, some way to apply insights that you have about how users are behaving, and in particular if you're doing some research, and that can often help, maybe sometimes even change the brand people's minds. And then we use testing as well as a bit of a jujitsu approach, right? We use their momentum against them a little bit sometimes. Well, oh gosh, you know what? We won't take this thing that isn't brand compliant and launch it live on the whole site, but we'll just test it, right? And that is much more palatable to people for whatever reason when you put it that way.
Yeah. I see it as, the brand can stay within their style guidelines, but let's see how much we can push it as far as we can before the CEO or the brand managers really freak out. So right. Staying on the edge, but still staying within those brand standards. So I like to ask. People who've been in the space for a while, you've seen how the web has really evolved, and of course, it's a lot harder to sell online than really it's ever been. You have to kind of take a lot more steps, I guess, or there's a lot more touch points before someone may actually convert.
Yeah, that's for certain. And social proof has come on board strong, obviously.
Yeah.
Almost nobody buys anything without trying to read reviews or get some second opinion now.
Yeah. So in general, how do you see the conversion space in general growing, and what the future holds for potentials who may want to start optimizing?
Boy, the future. I'm interested in what's going to cause organizations to outperform, because I think that design, UX, conversion can be sources of competitive advantage. So if I could, I guess reframe the question a little bit. I mean, those organizations that they're going to be the most successful and gain competitive advantage and gain market share and outperform, in general from a business perspective, I think they're going to structure themselves differently.
Yeah.
And than has been done historically. Where you've got, product, and you've got marketing, and you've got sales, and you've got support. I think you're going to start to see senior leadership positions dedicated to experience, and where it's going to be someone's job to ensure that every customer touch point is consistent, managed well, integrated with the other steps, and just harmonized as much as possible. And there are early examples of that. I refer to like Virgin Atlantic. There is a guy who reports to Richard Branson, the CEO of Virgin, whose job it is to manage every customer touch point. And that person has authority over everything, from the cocktail napkins to the design of the flight attendant uniforms to the ticketing design, to obviously the website and interactions, to the color scheme on the planes, to how they're greeted. I mean, so they've taken the traditional organizational model and flipped it around, really. And this person is absolutely able to dive into the sales organization and change things, and likewise into support and these other groups. So I think that's going to be a trend that I really hope does continue. I think it's the right way to do things.
Yeah. Well, that having that consistency, and brand managers really work it into the whole customer journey, because it is that experience. That's what creates word of mouth marketing these days. You leave a plane from Virgin, and you got a great experience on the plane, and then you get a great experience on the website. That's really what's going to get you to refer the people to that experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you said something interesting there. I think most organizations' concept of the brand is evolving, and they're starting to get that it's more about prettiness, and enforcing visual design standards. And I hope that evolution continues. And I would like to see less use of the term brand and branding, honestly. I think it's been overused to the point where it's almost meaningless. Right. And I'd like to see much more focus on the experience, because the experience, the brand, I think, tends to be a person's opinion of what the brand is, and they can make it up, and you can't argue with them. That's not on brand is really difficult to argue with, and it's a moving target, But hey, our research indicates this is a poor experience. That's concrete. You can do something with that.
Yeah.
Right? Or here's an opportunity to improve the experience, and we think by doing this, it will have both short and long-term business impact for us. That's real. And it's much more customer centric. So I like to see an evolution from branding to experience over time. And I think that's going to happen. And these new organizational models are evolving to support that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that word, customer centric. I always think about that when I'm designing. I'm not designing for myself, I'm designing for that customer.
Right.
So now you're the CEO of Closed Loop. You've been in business for a number of years now. Tell us a little bit about your business, and what do you guys have coming up in the future?
Well, we started off, back in 2001 doing, online marketing, search marketing. We did some SEO back in those days. But we're pretty heavy on search marketing, and then once we maxed out those campaigns for clients, they came to us and asked us for more, and so we turned our attention to post-click factors, and that's when we got heavier into landing page optimization, and that then led into more broader conversion rate optimization, and that then has led now more into more of a focus on user experience and user research. So we've evolved over the years, and as the web has evolved, and we've developed deeper expertise in a number of areas. So now we're doing search marketing, we're doing conversion rate optimization more at an enterprise level.
Yeah.
We're doing user research, and then we're doing UX strategy and design, and those four things are really what we're focused on for now as a company. And moving forward, we'd love to start developing some of our own tools as well. I think like most agencies, we have this concept of, hey, how can we take all this knowledge that we have and build something for ourselves here? And so we've got some side projects in the works as well. We're excited about.
Excellent. I'm definitely looking forward to some of the stuff you have coming up in the future. My last question I'd like to ask, what would be one thing that people can do for their own sites or their client sites to really take their businesses or their websites to the next level?
It may sound simple and kind of silly, but we've had success just playing detective. And maybe you've seen the old Columbo TV shows, right? This guy comes in and he's, he's really smart, but he plays sort of dumb. He goes, remind me again, what was it about that thing? And, and he's very disarming in that way, right? So we play Columbo with our clients' websites and user experiences, and it is so powerful. And what we'll do often is we'll just do screen video of running through their sign-up process, for example, or their onboarding process, and we'll capture things and we'll annotate that sometimes, and then we'll turn it around and put it in front of the client. And the things we find often are just amazing, and sometimes it's showstoppers. It's like, in the middle of a very important onboarding step where customers are sharing personal financial information, your application crashed. While trying to download the software on a particular installation of on a PC, it just stopped working. There are just major showstopper issues that are relatively easy to fix, but that big companies in their rush to and growing companies in their rush to get stuff out there, they lose visibility to that stuff. And it's remarkable to me how just coming in and playing detective a little bit, what you can uncover quite often, and it's often powerful stuff. And the problem is that the companies don't often want to hear it, right? They want to hear magic and big deep methodology, and they want to hear from the gurus and all this. So when we come back and say, well, actually, you got stuff that's broken, and if you just fixed that, you'd probably bump results 20%, right?
Totally.
But it makes sense in my mind to start there. Yeah. And if I was in charge, that's where that's the lowest hanging fruit. Just fix the stuff that's broken. Then we can optimize and improve from there. But I think, really having the discipline to sit down and put yourself in your customer's shoes and have 10 or 20 people in your organization go through the actual customer experience, you'd be amazed what you can uncover just doing that.
Yeah, I love that. Become a detective and really just problem solve, find those opportunities, low-hanging fruit, and it's a lot easier to bring those conversion rates up. So thanks, Lance. Let's close by telling people how they can find out more about you.
Sure. Welcome to check out our website, obviously, closedloop.com. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Loveday. Those are probably the best ways to get at me. And out there speaking on occasion at Conversion Conference and some other conferences. But love to meet anybody. Come up, shoot me a message. Let me know what's going on.
Cool. Thanks a lot for your time, Lance.
Thank you, Alex. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.